Hey people, welcome to the channel, and in this case talking about lighters, both for EDC, some alternatives, some things to try out, and for your different survival kits, for your bug out bags, whatever kits you have going on. I was actually checking out one of mine and I realized that this little big lighter is no longer working. Whatever went wrong here, it still has gas, but the wheel, either the flint, the spring broke, or there's something wrong there because it just moves freely and it's not throwing a spark. So as always, little tips to begin with. Keep in mind that you want to check your kits so as to see if anything needs replacing and if anything has degraded over the years as they go by, food that expired, and so on. Especially this kind of stuff. And for fire starting, the rule of 3 definitely applies, meaning 3 is 2, 2 is 1, and 1 is none. For me, the best 3 methods for starting fire when I'm looking for contingency, I want to have a typical lighter, something like this. I want to have a fire steel, and maybe the more reliable way of starting a fire, matches. Matches in a waterproof case with a proper rubber O-ring of some kind and a solid case. That's been, in my experience, the best way of making sure I have fire whenever I need it. Now, these are things you want to try out. For example, the idea of dipping the tip of your match in wax sounds good, but doesn't actually work. I mean, over the years, I've noticed it just falls apart, especially if you give it a little bit more time, or painting it with nail polish. And I guess that some people try it and liked it. Now, over the years, I've learned that the best thing to do is leave the match as it is in a waterproof container. That's been the greatest chance of success I've seen over the years. But going back to the lighter thing, I got myself one of these packs with 3 lighters just to replace the one that I need to get rid of because again, no longer working. And I have a couple more to try things out. I like red ones because they're very visible, but this gives me a little bit of an excuse to try out some other things. Now, one of the basic prepper things to do is just to maximize the usefulness of whatever it is that you have, wrapping a little bit of 3M tape, right? Wrapping duct tape around your lighter. This works very well and is super useful. I don't smoke, so I don't find myself using lighters often. Now, usually I will have in my bags, especially when it's traveling a little bit, in my EDC bag or whatever type of bag I have with me, I usually will have a lighter and it will usually have some kind of tape around. And I can tell you, it got me out of little complications more often than I can remember. Just a little bit, a couple inches of tape usually does the job. Now, you can go with either something more tactically cool like this or something more visible. Since you're not in enemy lines or anything like that, usually you want something more visible. So this kind of thing makes sense. Orange or whatever is very visible. And as you see, it's the exact same length in the lighter as how wide the tape is. So that works nicely. Go with quality tape. Don't buy the cheapest crap you can find because you have little of it. You want to be good quality, especially the sticky glue. 3M usually works well. Even better, if you can, get yourself 3M. This is what I try to use in most of my kits. But yeah, same thing. Same, just as wide as a lighter, so it goes in there nicely. A few inches, couple feet, whatever you can wrap around it will come in handy. Now, finally, the other thing I want to talk about is Jute cord. This cordage, natural fibers, these work very well. They're super cheap, and yeah, it's not your fancy 550 paracord, but to be honest, many times for most of the things you're usually doing outdoors or even anything around the garden or your backyard, usually this is going to be strong enough. Even for improvising shelters and so on, you don't need the kind of strength that paracord provides. I mean, it's nice and all, and definitely in a survival kit, that's what I would like to have. But if you're going camping, if you're going bushcrafting, you probably want to get yourself some of this stuff, and it has several uses. One of the things I like, and I'm not for all the environment stuff, especially with the climate change bullshit, I do think that's always good if we don't pollute, filling everything with crap. I think that's always a good idea. So leaving chunks of paracord all over a natural environment is kind of shitty attitude. So if that's going to be what you need, tie things up with jute cord, which will degrade naturally and not leave a piece of plastic there in nature. So besides that, besides being super affordable and pretty strong for what it is, you can impregnate this a little bit with some kind of wax. I tried both. I tried melting and impregnating the the cordage as much as I could with paraffin and with beeswax. I really like beeswax. I just melt the thing, just put it in there, let it soak in nicely so that it goes into these fibers, and it's, yeah, I guess the results are nicer with beeswax. It's a little bit like rubbery, very flexible, right? And you see how it kind of retains the shape. A little bit, tacky at first, then as it cools down, it becomes less so. Yeah, I definitely think that the paraffin one doesn't look as nice. But try both and see which one you like the most. Now, the cool thing is that with your lighter, you just wrap it around, and I carry it in my pocket for a few days to see how it goes, and also feel that it's leaving your hands with a little bit more like a conditioner. So yeah, beauty tips here in the Modern Survivalist, but I'm not kidding. It kind of does a little bit of keeping your hands a little bit smoother, especially when working and doing stuff around the house. I like beeswax. I have done a finishing job in one of my Ontario knives, K-Bar Ontario, so one of the modern ones. The leather washers were not finished, and just putting it in melted wax, letting it soak in and go in there, and just handling a little bit and polishing. Just beautiful how it ends up. But in this case, you just soak this stuff in the melted wax and you just wrap it around. And because it's like tacky at first, and as it gets a little bit warmer with your skin contact, it it melts into itself a lot easier. You can do this, which is just giving it a little bit of contact there and heat with your fingers, and kind of pushing it into position. You can restore whatever amount that you use. It just melts back into place and stays there pretty effectively. So let's say I use a little bit of this stuff, right, like I did, and I want to restore it, right? You can just do this, just pushing with your fingers and so, and kind of like that, and there you go, right? You see how you can restore whatever is used. Of course, ideally you would leave everything entirely as it is, so as to have the actual cordage, right? You want to have a long strand of cord if you ever need it for whatever task. But you can use it, especially if it's a full length. But if you want to restore a little bit, you can do what I just did there. Anyway, if you're thinking about what's better for burning and how well this works, let's actually try this out. I have a little bit of a piece here. Let's cut a small length of this stuff, right? Just to give it a try. And I want to compare it to the one that I have with paraffin, right? The kind of stuff you find in candle stores and so on. So let's cut as close as we can to the same length, right? So it's going to be paraffin there on the right and the other one on the left, tying a little bit of a knot so as to have somewhat of a little wick to get things going. All right, a little bit of a knot here, and let's light this thing up and see how long they will burn, one right next to the other. All right, okay, yeah, I don't want to burn myself here, but I guess that will do a job. So this is basically how you would use it. If you want to start a little bit of a fire and you have somewhat of tinder already in place, and it's all just a matter of using this stuff. I want to do this quickly so as to compare how well each other burns. Okay, so I think that's fair enough. All right, so we have paraffin on the right, beeswax, natural beeswax on the left. And again, I've done this already, and it kind of burns the same. I don't notice that one has noticeably more heat output than the other, or one burns noticeably longer than the other. Again, I feel that beeswax, natural beeswax, is nicer. It's natural. It's not the petrol crap that the other one is. So that's the way I see it. I feel that it has a little bit of that conditioning, application too. And having carried it in my pocket for a couple days, it's, I guess with a little bit of lint in there, it still stays a little bit tacky, especially if it stays a little bit warmer. If it's cold, forget about it. It's like a piece of plastic, but it doesn't melt on you, at least not to any extent that I've noticed. And if you're wondering about using it with a fire steel, you definitely can. You have to spread those fibers a little bit better. This is not like cotton, so it's a lot more coarse. So those fibers are a little bit more difficult to pull apart, especially once that's soaked with beeswax. So it's very strong, almost like plasticky. But as you see, it burns for a decent amount of time in both cases. So with just a couple inches of this stuff, you can get yourself a little fire going, let alone if you use even more of it. And for as compact as it is, damn, I would throw one of these in a backpack, especially when going outdoors, without giving it a thought. Now, are there better fire starters? Of course. Are there better things? Yeah, sure. Now, for this, I also take into account how easy it is to do, how cheap it is. I mean, just very cheap. And yeah, how practical it ends up being. Ideally, I would go with a small bag of Hamado tinder, cardboard tinder. You see what I mean? They both pretty much extinguish at kind of the same time, so that wouldn't be one of the factors. I simply like natural stuff more than the paraffin one. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be all for now. I hope you got something out of this little video. For more tips regarding EDC and that sort of stuff, street survival skills, where I cover a lot of that practical aspect, EDC, even stuff like kind of clothing you wear and so on. So this kind of thing is there. And for the economic aspect of preparedness, as always, surviving the economic collapse, giving everything going on. You probably want to check it out. Over 1,100 reviews on Amazon. Thank you guys for the support, and the links are going to be there below in the description. Take care. See you next time.